Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, the legislative session is over. They've made all the laws they're going to for this year. So we're going to be looking at some of these key new laws. We're not going to be looking at every single law that was done. There was 1,213 new bills and resolutions that were proposed this year. We couldn't go over them all, but we're going to look at some key ones. What passed, what failed, and how different people voted, whether they voted yes, no, or they didn't vote at all. And some people are going to be rather surprised to find out how their legislator voted or failed to vote.
Say what?
Before we get into this, I want to give you a biblical principle for showing these voting records. Notice what the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 20 and verse 11. Even a child is known by his doings, whether his work be pure and whether it be right. Biblical principle here showing us it's more important to see what somebody actually does. That's going to show us what we need to know more than what they just may come and say to you. So this is what they actually did. Let's start looking at what I think is the most important bill the legislature passed this year, which was Senate Bill number 150. This was a Student Protection Act. It protected kids from this radical leftist woke agenda. And it passed. And I got to say, the transgender crowd came up to the Capitol and they were just literally screaming in hatred at our legislators in the committees, in the hallways. Most atrocious thing you never want to see. So much for the crowd who says they're all about love and tolerance. I had said before that this bill would need more teeth before I could support it because we had other bills that were stronger. I'm happy to report to you the legislature listened to the people, and when you called and when you emailed and they took those other bills that had some great parts, more teeth to them, House Bills 177, 173, 30 and others, and they integrated them into this bill. Let me tell you some of the things that this bill wound up doing. And again, this did pass into law. Senate Bill 150 says that you're not allowed to perform these mutilation surgeries on children to try to artificially to change their gender from one thing to another. The liberal media crowd is saying, oh, that is banning health care. That's not health care. That's a mutilation of a child. And thank goodness the legislature made that illegal. You're not allowed to do that anymore. It says the schools and others, they're not allowed to give children these drugs which are going to block their hormones and block the puberty process. That is messing with what the child's body would naturally, normally do in a healthy environment. And they block them from giving them drugs to change all of that. Thank goodness for that. They gave some protections to our teachers and other school staff, saying they are not required to use some kind of pronoun which actually doesn't apply to the child, the opposite of what they really are. And so now teachers do not have to participate in a lie saying something is the opposite of what it really is. Gave our teachers some protection. We got that bathroom part in there where they're going to keep the boys out of the girls' bathroom and the girls out of the boys. Thank goodness for that. It also says the schools aren't allowed to conduct classes or other kinds of instruction time about changing your gender identity or changing your sexual orientation. None of that belongs in the schools anyway, and they just passed it, making that the law of the land. So that's great. Very happy about them putting some real teeth to Senate Bill 150 and passing it into law. So who voted for it? Who voted against it? And who didn't vote at all? Well, when it came up to the Kentucky State Senate, we had almost every Republican in the Senate vote for it, and all of the Democrats voted no. And the reason I'm only going to be showing you Republican votes is because I sincerely doubt there's a lot of liberal Democrats that watch Patriot Point. So really, there's not any point to that. It's the Republican conservatives who watch, so that's the ones we're going to be talking about today. As far as in the Senate, this bill was voted yes by all the Republicans, except we had one Republican vote no on this, and that was State Senator Danny Carroll. When it went to the House of Representatives, the Republicans all voted yes with a few exceptions. These are the House of Representatives Republicans who voted no to this bill. Representative Kim Banta, Representative Stephanie Dietz, and Representative Killian Timony. Now, when it came up for a vote, there were some people who decided they're just not going to vote at all. And I want to show you a biblical principle about not voting at all. Notice what the Bible says in Revelation chapter 3, verse 15. This is Christ speaking. He says, I know thy works, thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou were cold or hot. Christ is basically saying here, hey, take a stand one way or another. I can at least respect somebody on the other side of an issue who tells me that, they're on the other side. But here's some people who didn't vote at all. We have Representatives Robert Duvall, Representative Scott Lewis, and Representative Kimberly Mosier. Pay special attention on Representative Scott Lewis. We have two representatives named Lewis. One is Scott Lewis, one is Derek Lewis. Please do not confuse the one for the other. Representative Derek Lewis voted yes. Representative Scott Lewis did not vote at all on this particular issue. Let's talk about another bill. This is Senate Bill number 115. This bill would say that we're not going to allow drag shows in our schools and other places that are designed for children. The Kentucky State Senate took up this bill, and every Republican up there voted yes, except for one. We had one that says, well, I'm not going to vote on this either way at all, and that was Senator Julie Raquet Adams. It went over to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives did nothing. Now, here's the reason for that is before a bill can get voted on, it has to get sent to a committee. This bill was delivered to the House, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives never sent it to a committee. I'm going to tell you this. If they don't send it to a committee, they don't want this bill. And don't let anybody tell you differently about it. It's kind of a flaw in our system right now is whoever is the leader of the Senate or the House, they get to assign, they're head of the committee on committees. And that committee assigns bills to the committee. If the committee approves it, it will come up to the full floor for a vote. But if it never gets sent to a committee, means whoever was in charge didn't want it. So, and just to be honest with you, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, David Osborne, it passed the Senate, it got to his desk, and he decided he's not even going to send it to a committee. And so this bill died because of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And that's just simply the matter of the way that it is.
And that's the way it is.
And that's the way it is.
Let's talk about House Bill number 312. This says that you're not going to need a certificate of need. We talked about this several times. It says in Kentucky law right now, you're not allowed to build a hospital or some of these medical facilities within certain miles of other ones unless you can prove that you have a need for it. Well, there was a bill that would stop that, would loosen this requirement in a way, and again, it never even got sent to a committee. Let's talk about House Bill number 101. This had the same wording almost exactly as House Bill 31. And this would say we are not going to require students going to Kentucky public schools, we're not going to require them to get the COVID vaccine. There's been a lot of problems with this. We're seeing people dropping dead of heart attacks, other problems. So they put a bill saying we're not going to require that. Democrats voted no. The Republicans voted yes. However, there was a few Republicans that said, we're going to vote with the Democrats. Those were Representatives Robert Duvall and Representatives Kim King. It was sent over to the Senate. The Senate president did send this to a committee, the Committee for Family and Children, but that committee never brought up the bill to vote on it. Now let's talk about a few of these others, and we got to do these quickly because there's so many we need to talk about. There was Senate Bill number 41. We talked about this one earlier this year, and that would basically give the authority of a sheriff in any county full authority to do their job in any county in Kentucky. I thought that was a very dangerous bill. I'm happy to tell you that did not pass. That did not become law. Then there's Senate Bill 50 and also House Bill 50. These two bills said the same words. It would say we're not going to allow local races like for mayor and county officials to be nonpartisan. It would say you're going to say you are either Republican or a Democrat. I'm sad to say that bill did not pass. That bill died. I think that would have been good to let the people say where they stand. There's no such thing as being nonpartisan. It's just you're hiding it from the people. That's all that does. That bill that would have required them to say where they stand did not pass. Then there was House Bill number 19. Thought this was a great one. That would say they're not going to tax military pensions. Unfortunately, that one died as well. Let's talk about House Bill 66. This was a bad one. It would say that the utility companies have to give away their services for free to different people that the government designates. I thought that was bad. I'm happy to tell you we had a bunch of patriots call and write saying this is just out and out socialism. They listened to you, and this bill was defeated. Let's talk about House Bill number 79. This would say that we're going to make a voluntary don't sell a gun to me list in Kentucky. Most ridiculous thing I ever heard of. Well, they didn't bring that issue up because somebody thought that was dumb. So that didn't happen at all. But talking about gun rights, something they did do, and I think this is great, and that is House Bill number 153. All of you gun activists out there, such as myself, you need to write down this one. House Bill 153 says we are not going to enforce here in Kentucky all these unconstitutional regulations and bans on guns and ammunition sales that are sent down from the federal government. So good for them for standing up for what's right and passing our Second Amendment protections here in Kentucky. So they passed that one. That is House Bill number 153. There was one person who decided they're just not going to vote at all on this particular issue. And again, that was Senator Julie Roque Adams. Let's talk about House Bill number 547. This is a very important bill. This would protect the First Amendment rights of our school teachers and other school employees, saying that they have the right, if they want to wear, like I have a lapel pin, if they want to have a religious lapel pin or jewelry, something like that, they're allowed to wear that. It also says when they are off duty, such as like during their break time, lunchtime, things like that, if they choose that they want to have a Bible study or a prayer meeting, they're allowed to do that. Simply protecting the First Amendment freedom of religion rights for our teachers and other school employees, House Bill 547, and they did pass that into law. So that's a great thing. Now, there was more than 1,200 bills this year. No way we could go over them all. But if you'd like to know about any particular bill number, say, well, whatever happened to this one, Mr. Watts? Just put it in the comments and I will answer you. I'll show you if it passed or not. I'll even put a link in there on the voting record and you can see how your legislator voted. If they voted yes, if they voted no, or if they're like, I'm just not going to vote at all and take a stand either way. So now we are at the end of the legislative year, which means the governor is now during what is called the veto time. The governor can veto things and then the legislature will come back in for 2 days and decide to override any vetoes the governor chose to do. And I'm expecting that to fall down what we would expect. If there's any surprises, we'll make sure to put that in an upcoming episode. So that's what we have for you this week. And I thought I'd just leave you with one little thought here. And that's the thought that the same people that wanted to hide the January 6th video from actually being shown to you are the same politicians who told you that the elections were fair. I just thought I'd throw that part in for free. Well, that's what we have for this week. So until next week, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.
And that's the way it is.
And that's the way it is.